Now it's Instacash Grenada. Imagine a game with no numbers to choose from, no draws to wait on, and you can play it every day, including Sunday. That's Instacash. It's fast, it's easy to play, and you win prizes instantly. Instacash. Must be 18 years or older to play. NLA. Making dreams come true.
You ready for an exhilarating adventure? Then look no further than Ride Excursions and Tours. Get ready to explore the great outdoors like never before with our powerful e-bikes. Discover breathtaking sightseeing tours around the island. Feel the wind in your hair and experience nature in its purest form. Now, whether you're a seasoned rider or a beginner, our e-bikes are perfect for everyone. Call us at 473-422-1011 to book your excursion or visit ridersebikes.com. That's ridersebike.com to reserve your spot. Unleash your adventurous spirit with Ride Excursions and Tours, where every journey becomes an unforgettable adventure.
Grenada!
Get ready for something new as Project 413 presents North Pole Festival of Lights.
It's Festival of Lights, the official launch.
Come here, my baby. Come, let me show you nice.
Saturday, December 9th, the Breakwater Project in Sates will be lit. We're lighting up the Breakwater Project. The lights will be on from 6:30 p.m. and runs every night for the entire month. Come enjoy the amazing light show together with live performance by Boise, Valine, Crave, Lunispark, Electrify, and more.
Come enjoy the Octane Band and the Alpha 1 Band.
Showtime 9 p.m. Admission only $25. Weekdays absolutely free. The lights will be on display every night, and there will be live performances every weekend.
Festival of Lights, the official launch.
Saturday, December 9th, the Breakwater Beach, downtown Sates. See you there.
Yeah. 1, 2, check. Welcome to Ride Along Live for Tuesday on the ride. It's an exciting Tuesday, guys. And first, let me apologize for yesterday. Monday, we had a bit of an internet challenge, a few internet challenge that affected our broadcast. So hence the reason why we could not have come on live yesterday. Nevertheless, we are here. All right? We are here. And today, guys, I want everybody to share this program because a lot of times people miss opportunities, right? And the reason why they miss opportunities is because they ain't paying enough attention, right? So I want you guys to pay attention to this particular program because it has to do with your livelihood, right? It has to do with your money. It has to do with the economy of a country, Grenada, Carriacou, and Petit Martinique. Now, the budget speech, the budget was presented, the estimates of revenue or the budget was presented on the 4th by the Minister of Finance, Honorable Dennis Cornwall. And there was so many things inside of the budget. And for those of you who caught the budget, you would see that there's a lot of niceties now. There's stuff that for the Imanis, increasing Imani's salary. We're talking about increasing salaries for the parliamentarians, which was controversial. It's controversial. There's increase for the seed program. There are a lot of niceties in there, but we have to go deeper and see how all these budget, this $1.6 billion budget affects the common man, and what we could do, what you could do to ensure that it affects you in a positive way. All right? So hence the reason why today we decided to seek the time of the minister. You know, he's very busy, but he did take the opportunity to chat with us, and I hope you guys know how beneficial it is to you because you now have a one-on-one engagement with him, and of course the phone line is going to be open to chat live. So we ain't wasting no time whatsoever, guys. Help me to introduce to you on the program today the Minister of Finance, Civil Aviation, and a few other things which I'm sure he's going to tell us. Mr. Cornwall, my brother, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Junior. Let me just clarify from the onset. I am only the Minister for Finance. All the other portfolios you're about to add,
Uh-huh.
we relinquished those back in April of this year. Because remember, I
Okay.
used to be holding the portfolio of Minister for Infrastructure, Physical Development, Public Utilities, Civil Aviation, and Transportation. Since assuming the portfolio of Minister for Finance, I have relinquished all the other areas that I've had in the past. They are now part of the Prime Minister's portfolio at the moment.
Portfolio. Okay. Yes. 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 Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, Minister of Finance, so you're very focused on things that's affecting finance, and that's applaudable. First of all, I got to tell you, yesterday I sat and I watched the budget because I'm an entrepreneur, I'm a business. I'm looking and see how the budget will affect, how it's affecting the common man, and I have to applaud you and the administration because I think it was a well presented budget, a well put together budget. Before we get into the niceties and the things that's inside of the budget, how do you prepare for such a long presentation? How do you prepare for such a long? I mean, tell us. After I
Well,
talk
Julian,
about how I take over
let me be frank with you from the onset.
Uh-huh.
I was intended to deliver a budget speech of just over an hour and a half.
Uh-huh.
Notwithstanding, it took a little longer than that. Now, I would tell you also that there is no easy feat in standing on your feet for such a long period and to present a laser focus budget to the nation. Now, there are a lot of behind the scene things that happens to make sure that that is possible. Because by myself alone, I would not have been able to at least just present you practically 2 hours of information without even blinking. I had to continue until I'm finished.
And you have to keep that momentum, you have to keep that hype, just like
Right, right.
all the way through.
And I would tell you that it's not an easy feat. It's a teamwork. I mean, I've had good support from the Ministry of Finance staff. I have had support from the other cabinet colleagues, press secretary, the clerk of parliament, and its staff. In other way, there is behind the scene a lot of team effort in making this happen.
Right, right. Well, we know you've been a part of the Ministry of Finance. You started there in your career. Were there any, I ain't gonna say fright, but were you kind of intimidated or felt away because no, you're the man, you're the one presenting, you're doing this for the first time. Were there any kind of anxiety a bit before going in and presenting, knowing the world is watching?
Well, I expected the world to be looking at me for sure, so I was kind of prepared to face that audience. I do know that at the end of the day, anything that you have done for the very first time, there might be a little nerve, that is overacting, but I was able to calm myself because I have had the chance to read that budget speech several times silently. But again, it's different when you're actually speaking aloud and trying to stay focused on what is written. So, yes, it's a challenge, and I don't think anybody should see it as a walk in the park.
Yeah, yeah. No, leading up to the budget, we're going to get to it, and I know that's what a lot of people are here for, but I just want to get some background information. Leading up to the budget, what are some of the consultation, what are some of the preparatory work that has been done before coming up with that document that basically entailed the spending, proposed spending for an entire year?
Okay. So you really recall that the budget department and the budget senior management staff and the various ministries would have gone around throughout the various parishes of Grenada, Carriacou, and Petit Martinique, and we had some input also from the diaspora that helped us basically get some of the feedback that they would want to see in the budget. And we took on board all of those suggestions and so on, so that when we actually put in the budget together, which again comes from the various ministry and department that provide us with the manpower needs, the material needs, the everything that they need to basically carry them through the fiscal year 2024. However, I mean, sometimes you might tell yourself, well, what you're getting is a big wish list.
Yeah.
Whether or not you're able to basically put everything that you wanted to put in that budget. There's some sifting through that information. There is the further consultation to make sure that we stay within certain things. I mean, you would have heard about the budget is done within the fiscal resilience framework, meaning that we wanted to make sure that we're not outside of that framework. It's basically a rule-based situation where we want to make sure that our debt to GDP ratio remains at a certain level, our salaries to public servants remain within that parameter. We also wanted to make sure that at the end of the day, that we're in compliance with the law as prescribed in the fiscal resilience.
Nice. Nice. Well, a couple of things that we're going to speak on, which was real niceties that people applauded the budget for. You spoke about the minimum wage increase, and I know there is a press conference that will be held tomorrow. You spoke about the increase in the seed program, the $200 increase, allocation of $21 million for the seed program in 2024, and a permanent increase of that $200. You also spoke about the Imani program, where workers in the public sector will benefit from an increase of $1,200 per month and improve $1,200 per month. So we're going to speak about that. But with all the applaud and congratulation and stuff that people are saying about it, you know, it wasn't all good. A few people had some not so nice things to say, right? The former Prime Minister had a few things to say as well. Let's take a look at that, and then we go into the other parts of what was discussed. This is what the former Prime Minister had to say.
Well, clearly, I've never heard a more inarticulate presentation or by any Minister of Finance over the years I've been involved. The Minister clearly was not able to express the words of his speech appropriately for persons to feel it. So that's one comment. Clearly, there's a lot of politically spiced language in a budget speech, which is not in keeping with tradition. A budget speech is not it's a politically document, but it's not supposed to be spiced with accusation of opposition and what opposition positions have been. That it reduces the speech itself. And so that's also almost a comment to the member who presented the speech. I see nothing there that warrants any sort of jubilation. I have seen a number of things that were said, which when we dissect it, it will show the nation the deceptiveness. Because when you're playing with numbers, you have somebody like me there ready to decipher those numbers, and we will decipher appropriately on Thursday.
Are you saying that you already detect major flaws in the numbers presented by the
not only that, and the statements also made, the pronouncement. So, of course, you wait for a verdict after I have the opportunity.
All right, and that was a clip there from WPG 10 on their news briefing. Thanks them for that clip. How do you respond to that? Saying that the budget was politically spiced, it nothing new, and it took a lot of political hit, unlike other budgets. How do you respond to the former Prime Minister on the presentation?
Junior, let me say first and foremost, every man, Jack, has his opinion, and I would not quarrel with a man's opinion. Whatever his opinion is his opinion. I think differently. There are other persons who think differently also. So I wouldn't waste my time trying to, beat noise with the minister over his pronouncement thus far. What I do want to tell him, though, is this. He may be an experienced politician, many years. He may be a statistician, but numbers are numbers, and they are what they are. You cannot lie when numbers are concerned. And I'm also going to say one other thing, that some people expect to go out there on the platforms and make all sort of remarks, and they expect you to sit there and say nothing. When you say nothing, they think that you are, well, accepting what they are saying. But the time must come when you have to refute those nonsense that they are spraying out there on the platform that don't make no any sense to me. So I therefore believe that irrespective of what the minister wants to say, is all up to him. Those who want to believe his lies could believe his lies. But again, I'm saying numbers don't lie.
Okay, all right. So let's talk about one of the items that you spoke about yesterday, right? On Monday, sorry. Yesterday. It was yesterday. Yeah, gosh, I'm getting all forgetful here. It was yesterday. Right, so one of the things that you spoke about yesterday is the decrease in the unemployment rate on the island. Now, a lot of people saying, so what are the pillars that actually are responsible for that, for those numbers? You spoke about statistics, you spoke about the statistic department and the numbers. But tell us, give us some more details in terms of the factors or the pillars that contribute to a decrease in the unemployment rate in Grenada.
Junior, the Statistics Department of Grenada is a source of the information which I used in that budget speech. The former administration utilized the same source for the pronouncement regarding unemployment, regarding consumer price index, and several other type of indicators that is necessarily put forward in the macroeconomic information that is provided to the public. We have not part company with the Statistics Department. And if we tell you that the Statistics Department pronounced that the unemployment rate of Grenada moved from 28.4 percentage point back in 2020 to just under 12% in October, November of this year. We are not fabricating those numbers. Those numbers are what they are. So you could go to town and come back. Those numbers are what they are. If you're saying those numbers don't mean anything or they don't represent anything, it means what you told us several years back doesn't mean anything either. You see where I'm coming from?
Right.
Because we are third party from the basis or the source of that information.
So you're saying that the numbers that have been provided as it relates to the job performance rate and the unemployment rate comes from that statistical department that has been in use for many, many years?
By several administrations. And if you're saying that the people who worked during your time were competent people providing data that is reliable, it doesn't make a difference right now because it's the same source. And let me go further by saying, those information that is provided by that statistical department is also shared with other regional and international institutions, including the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank, sometimes the Caribbean Development Bank, the World Bank, and the International Monetary Fund. And if those colleagues are able to utilize this data and present it in their writings and so on, what makes it so different to our administration using the same data and make pronouncement on them?
Mm-hmm. Okay. So with that being said, you say the unemployment rate when this administration entered was at what, 24? What was it?
28.4%.
28.4%, right? And now, after 18 months in office, you're saying that it's what?
11.9 on just under 12%.
Wow, drastic drop, right? What specifically contributed to that? What sector?
Well, we have been saying that the unemployment rate dropped because of a number of activities that are taking place in the economy. Take, for example, in the construction sector, there are several hotels that are ongoing on the island, The construction sector could tell you right now that there is need for more employment in that area to take on board all that is happening in that sector. The tourism sector also is showing signs of improvement, both on the cruise ship side of things as well as on the airlift side of things. So there is a lot happening there. Again, the wholesale and retail situation is showing that there is a lot of employment taking place in that sector also. So whether you like it or not, the numbers are speaking for themselves. There is increased employment in education, construction, wholesale and retail trade, and other areas.
Are we talking about short-term employment, or are we talking about full-time permanent employment? How does this statistic, okay, in other words, what is employment?
Well, gainful employment is what I'm referring to here. So take, for example, the Six Sense hotel that was built in a such area.
Right.
While the hotel was under construction, it employed between 350 persons to 400 persons on an ongoing basis. Now that the hotel is nearing completion, and I think it will be open in March or May of 2024, they also expected just under 200 prominent workers to run that hotel at the end of the day. Take, for example, again, the hotel that is built in Point Salim by the Silver Sands entity, a 30-room hotel. Again, during construction, there were a lot of persons working on that hotel. Now that it's going to be open next week, I think on the 11th of this month, they are going to employ permanently somewhere in the region of 72 persons that are permanent workers on that site. And I can go on saying others. The construction sector is booming in Grenada. You could speak to the guys that are in construction, the Queens and this other company that is actively involved in construction.
Right.
That they find it hard to find workers. They find it hard to find skilled workers to be able to carry on their activities. As we said in the budget speech, there are challenges also with regard to heavy duty and truck drivers and so on that basically create challenges for the construction sector, in that we have to also import expertise that we do not have on the island to make it happen.
Right. What effect do you think that the payment of the pension had on construction and the lowering of the unemployment rate? Did it have any impact, do you think?
Yes, I would say so, Junior. And while I do not want to say there is a straight line between the pension that was received by our retirees and what is happening in those sectors. But take, for example, someone received his pension and gratuity at his age, let's say, of 60. He may have invested in the past in a home, which he was paying for through the bank. Having received that payment, he can go to the bank and pay off the remaining debt on that house. That house might have been on the ground for 20, 30 years. As you're aware, property do deteriorate at times, and sometimes we have to basically go in and spice them up, or spruce them up, refresh them, and so on. So money is going to go in that direction. So the $75.1 million that was paid to retirees, they are not sitting in the bank accounts doing nothing. Some of them have used them to purchase property, cars, pay off the loans, pay a little extra rooms that they might need to rent. In other words, that money has gone back into the economy. And there is a spill-off relationship with that. So for example, when the guy goes to, let's say, the Mahons or the Ramdanis or even the Hubbards to buy material for the renovation of the house, that money is paid to that company. That company further reinvests whatever the money is into other activities and so on to make sure that the economy continue to roll. It's not going to be sitting in a bank account like this. I mean, I could tell you, yes, the banking system is very liquid. There's a lot of money sitting in the bank accounts, and the bank would tell you that they don't have sufficient bankable projects to make that happen. But I do believe that some people would have utilized their resources to make things happen for them and their family, and the wider extension of the society.
Right. Okay. Let's move a little bit. Again, guys, this is as much your conversation as it is mine. So open up the phone line. You could call in at any time to ask a question to the Honorable Minister Dennis Cornwall as we talk about the recently presented budget, right? Let's talk about the minimum wage. Now, that has been something that people have been, I guess, clamoring for. Because really and truly, I can't understand sometimes when some folks told me what the salary is and you really calculate it, but like, damn, you're making like about $3 an hour in some cases when you really check. So let's talk about the minimum wage. Effective January 1st, 2024, a new minimum wage taking significant step towards the fair and just economic system. Talk to us about the minimum wage and the importance of having that as to build and strengthen the economy.
Yes. Well, Junior, the fact remains that for many years, maybe over a decade, the minimum wage in this country was not changed. In fact, there were people earning as low as $500 per month. And it's still happening as we speak. Now, come January 2024, when we are going to implement a new minimum wage, it is going to allow the working man, be it in agriculture, construction, fishery, forestry, whatever area they intend to be part of, to earn a minimum wage of up to $60 EC per day.
Okay.
Now, you may say, well, that's a big shift from where we were to what we are trying to achieve, because when you talk about $60 per day, it works out to be a minimum of $1,200 per month.
Right.
And that new minimum wage is going to be applied both to women and men across the board. In other words, we try to bridge a gap between the salary that a woman can earn per day and a man, and vice versa.
Mm-hmm. So is there a wide disparity at this point between what men make and what women make per hour?
In some sectors, yes. Women were not paid equally. Even if they're doing equal type of work, they were not paid equally. We are trying to basically ensure that we remove that kind of disparity in our wage.
Right. So how do you legislate that now? Are you saying that even in the private sector, so it's mandated, it will now be mandated that private sector employers pay this as a minimum wage, or what?
Well, let me just say, before we actually came up with the figure of $60 per day as a minimum wage, you may recall that the Minister of Legal Affairs and the Labor would have actually worked alongside a committee that she had formed, which is the Minimum Wage Committee, and they conducted several interviews, several consultations throughout Grenada, Carriacou, Petit Martinique, and in the diaspora to ensure they get widespread buy-in and information.
Right.
They also look at it on a sectorial basis. What is happening in, let's say, tourism, what is happening in agriculture, what is happening in construction. So it wasn't like we pulled that figure from a hat. And when we basically got all that information and review it and dissect it and so on, there was a report submitted to the cabinet with certain recommendations. And the cabinet decided, okay, we were not 100% sure that we could actually deal with what was presented to us. So we sent them back to do further consultations.
Right.
So I'm satisfied that the work that has been done is a high quality work done by Honorable Claudia Joseph and her team to ensure that what we have presented yesterday to the general public is something that is well thought of.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, as I said, I was shocked sometimes when people tell me their salary, and when you really check it, like, wow, it's really, really low. I want to talk about the overall summary, right? Overall summary here, because there was a question on the overall summary. You have recurring revenue of 1.2 billion and total grants of 1.4. 104.6 million in total grants. Now, how do you project that? You are projecting that is expected to receive. Are those grants signed for? How do you know that that's the grant you're going to get for?
Okay, so Junior, you use historical data that you would have actually have in your hands, which means, for example, let's say in 2022, the Inland Revenue Department, the Customs Department, the other areas that collect revenue on behalf of government would know how much they would have collected. And based on trends, they would know what is possible to be collected the following fiscal year.
Right.
So those numbers, again, does not come from a hat. They come from basically doing projections based on actual numbers in terms of revenue that was collected historically and what they project, where it can fall going forward. So the numbers are pretty close to where we expect them to be. Now, having said that, there is nothing called a perfect science when you're projecting. A projection is an estimation, right? So therefore, if let's say next year, January, we would have projected, let's say, to collect $100 million, and you would have collected, let's say, 110 million and so on. That's not too far off. But on the other side, you would have collected, let's say, $98 million, which is $2 million short.
Right.
But again, there are a number of factors that will come into play when you're basically collecting revenues. If your system is not as efficient as it is, even if the money is out there to be collected, you may not collect. There are persons who spend their life trying to basically fox tax systems. They just do not like to pay tax.
Right.
So again, you have to have good quality enforcement in your system to ensure that people pay the tax. In addition to that, the taxation system should be simple, that allows for greater compliance from time to time.
Well, I want to get to the tax thing, but I still want to dive in a little bit on that grant, right? Now, if you're looking at projections from past years, and you see last year, year before, all these other years, those are average because the revenue of expenditure and expenses are just a projection. But in this particular year coming and going forward, there are the war between Israel and Gaza. There is what's happening in Ukraine. There's so much instabilities that's happening now that was not present years ago, last year, year before. So how do you project that things are going to get better based on the grants and you don't know what the U.S. would do or other donor agencies might do?
Well, Junior, I believe that with respect to the grants, we have ongoing engagement with our donor agencies, our friendly governments, and in our engagement or interaction, we get commitment from them as to how much is it that they would basically be prepared to give, let's say, a Grenada or give to the region, which is the OECS and other entities and so on, in terms of what they can afford. Now, having had that information, you could basically say that you expect X amount of monies from the donor agencies, the friendly governments, and so on. So it's pretty good a science that you can say this is what's going to happen. Now, we have had situations in the past where, let's say, for example, that controversial UK SIF fund that the former administration said they had gotten some 22 million plus pounds. After many years and so on, not being able to implement those projects, we end up losing the entire amounts, where this current administration had to go back and renegotiate. I think we were able to salvage some 16.9 million pounds out of that amount, out of the 22 points and 20 points something pounds. Now, as you rightly said, the situation then when the former administration was given that commitment, it was good for 6 years. The so-called implementation rate was very low. Circumstances within the UK has changed. Governments have changed. People are clamoring about they will domestic issues to deal with and so on, and they can afford to give grants to people outside, so they put in back. And exactly this is what had happened. But again, with our conviction and dialogue with these people, we were able to come back and salvage over 16 million pounds after that grant that was originally given to us. We did that on time, and we lost a portion of it.
Right, but that's not what the previous administration. That's not how they summarized it.
Well, as I said, not everything that you hear from the other side, you could take it and run with it. because I said in the speech yesterday that despite all the evidence to show that what we are saying is what actually happened, they continue spreading the propaganda and the lies on the matter. What could you do in a situation like that? Now, there are people who are gullible enough to believe everything that certain people say on the outside.
Right.
I can say that they shouldn't, because again, every man, woman, and child should have an idea as to what is that they can accept as real or what is basically fictitious.
Right.
Basically, try and paint a picture that the current administration is inexperienced and young and they don't know what they're about. That is so foolish.
Right. Because again, it was said that, I mean, the facts are that in 2015, I believe Cameron came in. 2016, the money was issued. So then from 2016 to 2020, we had 2020 we had COVID, so we had the lockdown. But I know your administration is being blamed for losing that money in 2022. So when you look at it chronologically, it's a far disparity between the years.
Yes, and I mean, as I said before, the money was there, the money was given, promissory, and the years have passed. There are certain projects that were supposed to be implemented, and there were challenges. I'm not saying they were not, because COVID, for example, was one of the bigger challenges and so on. But again, to get the government, the former government, then to basically put its act together to ensure that they can draw down on those monies and so on, it did not happen. So that happened. It caused the money to be actually lost. In fact, when we got into office a couple of months afterwards, we had engagement with representation from the UK government on the same issue. We tried to basically salvage what is it that we were supposed to be implementing, that's the project that now was supposed to be implemented in the South. And we were also working along with the Caribbean Development Bank, who also was the channel which the UK SIF was going to be used to get the money to Grenada. And both parties, both Grenada government as well as CDB, was putting a little pressure on the UK to at least make sure that we get what they had promised. Obviously, the Western Main Road project component of it was lost, about £6 million thereabouts. But it wasn't because of NDC did not do a good job, because I mean, we didn't have much time to do any negotiation except to try and salvage what we could have salvaged out of it at the time when we were told that we were going to lose the money.
Right. Angus want to go back a little bit into the minimum wage. That's okay. He has a question. What is the minimum required hours of work per day and daily requirement hour of work? In other words, how many hours of work per day can an employer expect his employee legally? His employee legally.
Okay. So in Grenada, we have several sectors, and those sectors have different conditions under which those work are taking place. So take, for example, someone who works out there in the field, you don't expect them to be working a full 8 hours a day with 1 hour for lunch.
Right.
But in the government service or the private sector, somebody working in an office, they probably would be required to work for 7 hours plus the 1 hour for lunch. So that makes it 8. Now, if you try to basically paint that right across every sector, you'd be making a mistake. Because
Right.
the guy who's out there in the field in the sun, he doesn't have the air condition or the shade, or even if there is rain and it's much cooler, you don't expect that person to work for 8 hours. So it ranges from maybe over 5 hours in certain sectors to about 8 hours in other sectors. Per week, somebody might work a good, let's say 40 hours.
Right.
But it doesn't mean in every single sector, but construction, agriculture, fishing, that person would be required to work a full 8 hours with 1 hour lunch. But again, the tasks that is performed in various sectors are different. In the olden days, when I remember my dad and mom used to work lands and so on, they used to call what they gave the person to work a task. In other words, they measure how much feet up and across.
Okay, so we're speaking here with Honorable Dennis Cornwall. We lost his connection there for a bit, but I'm sure he's going to reconnect. We're speaking about the recently presented budget. He's struggling a bit with his internet connection, but that will be fixed.
Clear
Yeah,
to be able to get a day's pay.
Mr. Cornwall, we didn't hear you. Your connection was breaking up. In fact, your video is stuck in one place, so we're not able to hear you properly. Are you hearing me? All right, we're gonna try to get Mr. Cornwall connection back, guys. So we're speaking about the estimates, the overall budget summary here, and as we said, the recurring revenue, which is at EC $1.2 billion, total grants at the value of 104.6. Are you back with us, Mr.
Yes,
Cornwall?
I wasn't here. I wasn't hearing you for a short while, so I'm not too sure what you
Yeah,
said.
we lost connection. We lost connection, but we're happy to have you back here. Grants, I was just summarizing grants of 104.6 million, recurring expenses of 901.4 million, capital expenditure at 419.5 million, current account surplus of 315.4 million, principal repayment amortization 335.5 million, primary surplus after grants 557.2 million, and overall surplus after grants at 0.6 million. I want to kind of drive it in gear because I know the time frame is sketchy, so I want to kind of get through a couple of things. And then if ever we may have to come back, people may want to ask questions about a certain sector, we could always come back and ask. But one of the highly debated conversation on the island, I guess, have to do with the objection by the opposition leader in the increase, right? The increase of salaries for members of parliament, right? Break it down for us and summarize it for us and the logics of why was it necessary to implement an increase in salary for members of parliament?
Junior, as you would know that in our country for several years, elected parliamentarians were not provided with the required amounts of monies to be able to run the constituents. And I'm saying that to say because several administrations in the past would have been faced with the same scenario that we are faced today. I mean, when I go on the ground and my constituency come to me and say, look, I have need for a tank of gas. Now, I cannot tell that person I can give them that tank of gas every time they ask me for that because I do not have any resources provided to me by the government or by the state to be able to take care of this. But it's a reality. People meet you every single day and ask you to do something, whether it is buy the gas or give them money to at least meet their prescriptions or fill up prescriptions and other things, even to buy food, even to buy cigarettes, rum, whatever it is. I am saying that all parliamentarians should be very supportive of ensuring that parliamentarians or elected parliamentarians are given the required resources to be able to operate to meet some of those needs and so on. Because sometimes there are genuine needs outside there, and we shouldn't run away from it. But you don't expect me to dip my hand in my pocket for my own resources and try to give every man, woman, and child who works for me for that outside. And so we are saying that the time has come for us to stop playing games with this thing. We have a genuine need outside to help when we can, but we must be provided with that resources. And this is why we said we're going to propose to the House committee that they should look at providing parliamentarians, that is elected parliamentarians, with a monthly salary so that it allows them to be able to do what they need to do when they come. It also for the senators. Senators also have requests that they have to meet outside it. But even if you gave senators or parliamentarians that increase from 0 to whatever it is and so on, it doesn't mean that the other resources is going to be still sufficient to give all and sundry out there. And that's why it's also been talked about giving elected parliamentarians a constituency allowance, which allows them to at least meet certain needs of the population that they have to face on a daily basis. And I have no difficulty in proposing that, as I did yesterday in the budget. Now, it's not a foregone conclusion that the House Committee would basically just give what we propose. It could be higher, it could be lower, it could be whatever it is. But the main thing is there must be resources provided to all elected parliamentarians, whether in on the opposition or in the government. You should be given that resource to be able to function. Without that, we spin it up in mud.
Yeah, I mean, I do agree that when you look at the structure, financial structure, where you have some public servants like PS and under the ministers making more money than the ministers themselves, you know, it's not good optics.
Junior, I'm not even using that argument, because again, that has been so from time immemorial, where you have, for example, a permanent secretary, a head of department making more money than the minister. You know, some people believe that we go into this thing called public life because we have taken what you call a chance, because we went there prepared to serve. That is so true still. But we have to be realistic. You cannot cut your nose and spoil your face because you're trying to pay Mr. Nice PM or Mr. Nice Minister, and you have nothing at the end of the day. I can tell you that they have parliamentary representative over the years, when they leave politics, they were paupers. They could not even bury themselves at the end of the day because they had no resources. I remember one particular one that used to always say that every time you see me going up in the evening time with lumber and galvanized and steel on my Jeep and so on, these are monies I'm taking to basically help people in the community. And at the end of the day, I have nothing to go by. I am saying it's not moral for an MP to make those sacrifices and at the end of the day have nothing to show for it, or have nothing to basically fall back on when he becomes old and not able to help himself.
Right. So if that is the case, and it's been that way for so long, why in the past that have never been changed? Under previous NDC administration, previous NNP administration, why nobody tackled that?
Well, I'm telling you something. Some people didn't tackle it because they were cowards. Others didn't tackle it because they had people working with them or ministers working with them under the leash. They wanted them to be able to come to them every time and say, well, like, you need this, I need this. And once you have the situation where you come to that person or that individual for your needs, he has control over you and so on. We don't want that kind of situation. That situation, to me, is the worst situation that you could have in a government and so on, because you have people around you that are scared to even say what is on their mind. They're afraid to make decisions because you are the ones providing them with resources, right? And I'm saying that should change and change now. We cannot afford to kick the can down the road where that matter is concerned. We cannot saddle our country with those kind of situations. All around us, in Dominica, Trinidad, Bahamas, everywhere else in the world and so on, parliamentarians are provided with enough resources to help them serve the constituency in the best way possible.
Right, right. So when you say $5,000 proposed, right? Is it $5,000 increase, like $5,000 on top of what they're making now, or just $5,000 salary?
Let me make two distinctions. Members of parliament that are accountable to the parliament. If you are an opposition member, you get a stipend of $1,474 per month. As a senator, you get the $800 and something per month. A minister who is an MP also, and he's part of the cabinet, he gets absolutely nothing. In other words, I'm an elected member of parliament for St. Patrick East. I was not paid an allowance by parliament. I was given an office. I was afforded 2 or 3 staff. That's about it. Mm-hmm. I cannot tell anybody come to my office and expect me to give them resources that was given to me by that parliament to be able to help them. So when I say I pay for somebody else's gas or I fill somebody's prescription and so on, it's not coming from resources given to me by the parliament. And we are saying that we should make that change now to allow all elected parliamentarians to be able to afford that allowance so that they can carry out their duty and to serve their constituency in a meaningful way. The constituency allowance is also very much a requirement because, again, as I said, when you get your allowance and so on, you have to still pay for your mortgage, you have to still pay for your car note, you have to still take care of your family, you have to still take care of whatever it is you have outside there. And if you don't, you will leave office in 2 or 3 terms being a pauper because all your resources have gone in trying to help everybody outside it except yourself.
You know something have me scratching my head here? Here's something that have me scratching my head. Help me understand this. So you're saying that a parliamentarian was making so little bit of money, right? But how is it that we have parliamentarians that passed through in the past that are now millionaires? Like, how did they amass so much millions?
Well, I do not want to basically pinpoint or zero in on any one particular person or persons, but I believe, honestly speaking, some people would have actually gotten through it and they came out on the other side being paupers. Others came out being millionaires because they use the state resources illegally or otherwise to basically amass those kind of resources. They couldn't do it based on their salaries.
That's what I kind of get in because it breeds corruption. If you're not paying police officers and parliamentarians properly, it breeds corruption. Money go under, money go pass under, you go find other ways to sustain yourself.
Well, Junior, sadly, that was the situation, and it could be the situation if you do not take care of your parliamentarians, your elected members of parliament and so on. You open a floodgate. And I'm not saying that everybody would basically go and rob and steal the state to survive, because personally speaking, I don't believe that's one of my parts of my DNA. But there are people out there who are willing to basically look the other way and, survive how they could. But parliamentarians should not be put through that kind of situation. If you pay them well, they will be able to at least take care of their needs and also the needs of the constituents among them. And minimize the instances of, corruption and those things.
It's strange to me, to the least, to say that. Because as you said that the salary was so low, and then we have, okay, all right. That's a whole investigative program that need to be done there, how that is possible. Let's dive in, Minister, now into the Imani program. Our young people in the Imani program who are working in the public sector will benefit from an increase in the pay of $1,200 per month. What were they receiving before, and what warrant that increase?
Okay, so let me explain to you the policy of the former administration when they introduced the Imani program. It was a way of basically easing the burden of the young persons living in school and didn't have the ability to find a job on their own and so on. So they created this environment whereby the private sector is asked to take up some of them, the government absorbs some of them, and they were given them for a period of time a sum of monies, which is called a stipend, while they're trained to basically build their skills or harness their skills, do job in a professional way. But one may say, why should an Imani be in a training environment getting $700 stipend or thereabout for 10 years, for 8 years, for 7 years? Where are we going with that? You could be a Imani for life, just getting an income. They were Imani sitting at home. They didn't have a placement and they were getting $700 per month and so on. Does that help your situation at the end of the day? We are saying what needs to happen is that we need to continue to train young people so that they can be more adaptive for the world of work. At the same time, you can hold a child for 10 years or a mother who has 3 or 4 kids for 10 years under the Imani program and so on. Where are we going with that? So right now, where we are moving is to basically give them not a stipend anymore, but give them a salary of a minimum of $1,200. We're also going to pay the NIS employer component for them, so that at the end of the day, after you work for 10, 15 years or 20 years and so on, you would have been able to benefit from an NIS payment at the end of the day
So
based on
that
the
wasn't
number.
the fact before, Minister. That wasn't the fact before. The NIS was not being paid before.
There were people working as Imanis who were not paying NIS. In other words, after they spent 10, 15 years and so on, or the lifetime in there, they would go home without an NIS pension.
But how could that be? How could the government mandating that private sector pay the NIS and the government themselves wasn't even paying NIS for the Imanis?
Well, it may sound strange, but it's true. You can actually ask persons who have gone to the Imani program, how much of them have paid NIS for 10 years, for 8 years? And the answer is none of them. So you're basically trying to give people some resources to carry on their livelihood and so on. But at the same time, every month you're digging them deeper and deeper into a hole that they would never be able to come out of. This thing called the seed program is not by chance in some cases, you know. We basically fabricate that category of workers and so on that we were even talking about when they become age 60. They would have been part of the same seed program that we're trying to basically say that. Seed is good, it helps you, but you have to basically evolve out of that situation. You cannot stay there for life.
Well, unless you're differently able. If someone is
Well, yes,
unable to
if
work-
somebody is mentally challenged or they are so-called handicap or whatever it is and so on. I don't like to use the word handicap because
right.
some people take it to mean that they are different or whatever the case may be. And so I believe every man, woman, and child has an opportunity to earn the living, provided that they have the mental capacity and otherwise to do it and so on. So yes, you would have people in our society that the state has to take care of.
Right.
But you don't go in there and create further problems for you and so on. Why should somebody work for 20 years and when they leave, there is nothing to fall back on?
Right.
That
True.
doesn't make sense to me.
All right. There's a question here. How is the constituency allowance account for when used by the MPs? How does that work?
Well, Parliament is the one who is managing that amongst to afford parliamentarians to be able to do the work in the constituency. It's not a simple case where you just give a parliamentarian the money and then he does what he wants with it and so on. Parliament is supposed to put in place rules that enable proper spending, accountability of that money that is given to them. For example, a constituency allowance, the MP cannot take it and basically just take care of his family or immediate family with it. That is something that would not be permissible, right? He can buy rum on the road for guys who want rum or cigarette and so on. But like, for example, somebody has a medical situation, he can assist that person to buy a ticket to go get the operation done or to actually pay for that operations and account for it, because at the end of the day, there would be, let's say, so-called document to say that this person present themselves to the MP's office and so on, and there are criteria to buy, they followed it and so on, and therefore, at the end of the day, that money has to be accounted for. It's not for the parliamentarian to spend for himself or for his own interest or for his family. It is there to service some of the needs that you get coming from the constituents. So there must be rules and regulation that governs that, and accountability at the end of the day. Accountability, accountability, accountability.
So what laws or what legislation are in place for anti-corruption practices? Like what we spoke about earlier, parliamentarian ensuring that they're not using the funds that is allocated for community and other mechanisms or other ways, grants and all that stuff, and using it for their own benefits.
Well, I've tried to address that before by saying that there are rules that govern those constituency allowances and so on. It's not a case where the guy has been given these monies and he can go out there and fit all the women in later. You know, he cannot do that. He cannot go and buy the nicest vehicle on the market for himself. He cannot do that. So there are rules governing those monies and so on. And people have to get clear. You know, stop pointing fingers and say, well, parliamentarians going to use the money for this and that. I am not saying it was a case where it never happened, because, the only logic that you can conclude is that this could not have happened under the situation where that man is not given any resources over and above what he would have received and be able to amass all his properties and goodies and so on that you see around him. Again, I'm not pointing fingers at anybody or anyone, but I'm saying the facts on the ground speaks for itself.
Interesting. Guys, we're having this very important discussion, conversation here with the Minister of Finance, Honorable Dennis Cornwall, giving you opportunity to speak as well. You spoke about the seed program, where allocation of $21 million has been installed, a permanent increase of $200, right? Now, this has been a conversation because there are allegations that the now NDC administration took away that 150, right? What was the justification for now increasing it from 150 to $200? And where these extra money is coming from for this particular allocation in the seed program?
Okay, so Junior, let me go back from the start to say that the notion out there that the NDC government took away $150 from the so-called poor and vulnerable, the old people, the, let's say, handicapped or mentally challenged person in society is not accurate. When we came into office in June of 2022, the seed program existed, yes, but we had to end up going to Parliament later in the year when we assume office to seek approval for supplementary appropriation for some $8 million. So yes, the former administration said they were going to increase the payments under the seed program by $150 in some cases and so on, because they thought the COVID had left them with a situation that most people were still in dire straits. They said it was a temporary provision, yet they didn't provide it for it in the budget. So we had to basically go in and get supplementary to pay it. We paid it until the end of the year. We also noted that the way this seed program was managed or handled or targeting the person they were targeting was not the best. And that is why we basically proceeded to do what is called a recertification of the program. Now, there's a lot of stories outside of what the program did and how much the World Bank and the IMF and so on praise it and so on. I am not going to get into that because sometimes you have to basically listen to your gut feeling. The noise that's been made outside that the government of today took away 150 from the elderly and the handicapped and those mentally challenged is not the truth. Because that was a temporary measure that the government announced that we were going to take for a period of time. Take, for example, if you tell your child you're going to give them $10 additional to go to school because the rain is falling every day and you want to make sure that they are safe going to school, but you didn't provide for it and so on, and your neighbor come around and basically gave you resources to help that kid to go to school and so on, and they tell you, this is a temporary event and so on. When that comes to an end, what do? You continue asking the state to provide that resources that you said it was temporary. Now, having done recertification and other things, we have been able to at least weed the system of some of the malice that was in it and so on, because not everything was above board. And therefore, you may hear us talk about that promise of 150 extra on a temporary basis was a election gimmick mechanism to get people to vote for them. Now, some people may not want to hear that because, again, they want it to a different line. I've heard radio stations in the North preaching this thing day in, day out. Oh, well, we hammering the NDC so that they would turn their heart and pay that 150 and so on. That did not cause us to change, and that did not cause us to increase the amounts by $200. We believe that having targeted the right persons who those monies, I'm talking about the elderly, the mentally challenged persons, and other persons who have no means of support, we believe that we can give them a permanent increase as we speak of that $200 come January 2024. But again, it's not premised on the fact that we took away that 150 and now we feel bad and we want to go and give them back and so on. I've heard the rubbish on the road talking about, oh, well, they're supposed to pay us the extra 150 that they took back. We didn't take anything. We basically did not have a situation where the government that existed before provided the resources for that to happen. So going forward, you asked me where did the resources come to give the 200 permanent and so on.
Right.
I told you in the budget speech that the economy of Grenada performed well, right? Revenue has been at an all-time high for 2023. And therefore, based on that, we said we can basically afford to give an additional amount in the sum of $200 on a permanent basis. It's not based on election gimmicks or anything like that. So come tomorrow, come next year and so on, our seed beneficiary will continue to receive that $200. Now, if things continue to be good and better down the road and so on, it may increase further down the road. But again, you cannot give what you don't have, first and foremost. And you cannot give only one sector of the population everything. So we cannot give the pensioners everything. We cannot give the public workers everything. We cannot give the seed beneficiary everything. We have to balance that amount of money that we have in a pot to make sure that every man, woman, and child benefits in one way or the other from the resources that is raised from taxpayers.
A very concerning post here. Yvonne wrote that, Junior, I was employed for decades. When I retired, I found out that the former administration never paid my NIS for the workers. The money was deducted from the salary every month, but was never paid to the NIS.
Junior, that is possible. And I mean, sometimes when I look back at the national insurance scheme that have found itself in a situation whereby, if we didn't take measures to prolong the life of NIS, in 5 to 10 years' time, there might have been no NIS. I don't know if you recall, there was a time, for example, that government used to basically go to NIS and ask them to pay salaries or pay other things for them. And sometimes they would have given them, in lieu of that, borrowing lands, whether the land is good for development or otherwise and so on. And even today, as we speak, NIS has assets on the book and so on. I'm not too sure if they'll be able to get rid of it and so on to be able to keep the coffers in a fungible way. So the government, yes, have helped the situation to be where it is, and now they have to take measures to pull it out, to put back NIS on a sustainable path. Let me not say it's only government that did that, because there were people out there in the construction sector that had workers and so on. Deduct monies from the worker's salary, which was intended to be paid to NIS on their behalf, and those monies never got there. Again, this is immoral, illegal, but it happens. And we should refrain from doing that, whether you're in the private sector or you're in government, because to take somebody's deduction from them and not pass it on is a crime.
Right. Well, with that being said, and knowing that government is a continuum, the government owed these people to pay the NIS now.
Well, I believe once deductions were made, they should have been passed on to the NIS. Whether or not the government of the day has to take up the mantle and do it, even if the former administration did or did not do it and so on, we have to make sure that these things are put right. And this is why we're saying that we're not going to employ somebody, pay them a stipend of $700 and not pay the contribution from government over to the NIS to afford these people at the end of the day after 20, 30 years to benefit from a NIS pension.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah. I want to talk about this because this again has been bouncing around. So I really appreciate your time. We don't get you all the time. So just I want to get some of those questions in. There was a famous controversy that said that the previous administration, that this new administration and coming into government pay themselves an additional $2,000, right? Explain that. Why was it necessary to give yourself an additional $2,000 as you came in? How did that factor out?
Mr. Junior, I want to debunk very much upfront that this was a lie. I personally did not receive an increase in salary when I came in office. Let me tell you what used to happen before. The administration had a system in place whereby the MPs or ministers could have gone to the fire station or the gas station and the fast station and fill up their tanks whenever they wanted, as many times as they wanted and so on, because they are expected to move around the country to do the job. And I have no difficulty with that.
Right.
But when you can take, for example, this vehicle today, the other vehicle tomorrow, or your friend vehicle, and go and pull it up, because there are allegations outside. These are the things that used to happen. And you may say, well, how do you know that? The policemen talk, people talk, the drivers talk, even the concubines and so on who used to go and do it and so on, they talk also. So the question remains, I would tell you upfront that I would not have wanted to be part of such an arrangement. So in lieu of that, the government decided, okay, each minister or MP that is outside there had to basically do his work, and we need to provide him with resources to do it. So the cabinet decided to basically provide the ministers of government with an allowance of $2,000 in lieu of
So
not having
not a salary, you're saying an allowance.
an allowance to allow them to be able to gas up their vehicle and to pay all their expenses so that they can do their work.
But
Some
hold
call it
on.
corruption allowance.
When you say how are you saying allowance, and then it is being said that you guys got additional salary. You came in, and as you came in, you paid yourself $2,000.
That is rubbish. You know why I say it's rubbish? I did not receive a increase in salary when I got into office. I got an allowance to allow me to be able to gas my vehicle up and to deal with other expenses and so on a daily basis. Just as, for example, a minister would have been given an allowance as part of his package to install internet in his house, because he needs to basically work not only in his office but elsewhere. He may have given a telephone allowance, and everybody gets that. Why that is not considered to be a corruption allowance as they term it, or an increase in salary? I did not, as I said, I did not receive any increase in salary since I got into this administration. And therefore, those out there who pipe in the story about, ministers take $2,000 increase in salary is bullshit. I would say so, because that doesn't make sense.
Okay. You said it. So, okay, I'm very happy we have this conversation, Minister, because you're adding a lot of clarity to what has been said, right? And that's why I would love to have sometimes ministers on the opposition side come and clarify those things. They never seem to take me up on it, but I'm still putting the call out there at some point in time. Let the ministers come in and speak about these things, because here you are denying the fact that you got that money, and that is being publicized as is facts on the street.
Well, I mean, if you go out there and tell people that the ministers are gullible and so on, and they take a corruption allowance and so on, and you keep pounding it day in, day out and so on. I mean, some things that are not true, if you pound it long enough and sufficiently enough, it becomes part of the people's DNA, so they would believe it and so on. But I'll tell you, I personally, as well as my other ministerial colleagues, have not received any increase in salary as a result of being in office in the first couple of months and so on. We receive an allowance that allows us to pay for our gas and to run our vehicles, to allow us to go get our work done. You may hear stories that, we're not seeing ministers in the villages and the constituency and so on. How do you expect them to get there? If they cannot buy the gas or to fix the vehicle to get where they're going and so on. So you have to be real with these things.
Right. Okay, Minister, let's talk about the CBI. CBI. That was one of the strongest pillars in the last budget, right? How we are with CBI? Because it seems like there have been projections by the opposition that it would not be so viable in the next year or so. What's the projection for CBI?
Well, Junior, CBI has risen to a level in Grenada whereby government depends on the revenue, that is non-tax revenue from CBI, to be able to do its business, to be able to carry on its activities and so on. There has been a windfall, let's say, in the last couple of years with that program, where we are seeing extremely large intakes of revenue from that source. With the advent of the Russia-Ukraine war, the US and its allies decided, that they're going to be sanctioning Russia, and they were sanctioning not only the government, but anybody had anything to do with Russia, so that they had basically indicated to us as a CBI nation that we should not process Russian applicants, right? It's not because the Russians are bad people or Russians are wicked people, but if you have an issue in the world where you support one party against the other and you said, okay, well, I'm going to sanction this person, so you should not do business with that person and so on. We understood that, and we have heeded the call of the Americans and its allies that we should stop processing the Russian applicants. As a March gone, not only Grenada, but Grenada, St. Kitts, Dominica, St. Lucia, that's the islands that are basically involved in CBI programs, have stopped processing Russian applicants. However, the due diligence on an applicant could take between 1 to 6 months or more. That is where you have the due diligence operatives going out there and basically trying to find everything they can find on the applicant, because you are trying to make sure that you don't bring criminal scams and things of that like into your system. So while we actually took a decision to stop processing Russian applicants in March, in the system there were a backlog of Russians in there. We had taken people monies for due diligence and so on. Some of them would have asked them to deposit their monies into escrow accounts to be able to get their passport and other things. We couldn't just basically just drop everything and say, well, because the Americans and the British and the European Union folks said stop. We had to process that. And this is why sometimes, with the aim of trying to make sure we get everything out of the system, there might have been this influx of revenue under the CBI program. We also know very well that the Russian applicant would fall off at some point in time. In other words, we stop processing them, there'll be no revenue coming from that source, right? So we expect that there would be some downside risk to the program. But we are not sitting on our laurels. We are out there in the world practically right now looking at other markets that are basically available to us to be able to continue the program. So we are out there in Africa, we are out there in the Middle East, we are out there in China, wherever it is and so on, because the US has not put a ban on those countries and so on. We could do business with them. So yes, there would be a taping off at one point in, but again, it will stabilize and maybe go back up at the end of the day. Who knows? If and when this war between Ukraine and the Russians finish, things may normalize in the world again. So yes, one can predict that, oh, well, this is going to fall off and so on, and then we'll have less revenues and so on. Yeah, but that's if you basically be naive enough to say, well, look, wrap your hands and say, well, I'm not doing anything else because then let's take away my main source of income. You have to continue working, continue to improve on your system, make it more user-friendly and make sure it is more secure than it was. And then countries have to respect you, because for those who are basically telling you don't do this and don't do that, they themselves know that if we are cut off of those things and so on, they would have to find ways and means of assisting us. We cannot go to the US and say, well, give us this and give us that. We have to find our own bread and butter. That's all.
Right.
And therefore protect what we have. So irrespective of what the opposition is saying, oh, well, this is going to fall off and the government will not have resources to do this and do that and so on. That's only a projection they have. Who tell you that this is going to be the case? I don't know. They could be right, they could be wrong. But, one has to be very careful when they make this pronouncement and so on, because you're not operating in a bubble.
Right.
Real world.
Yeah. Last leg here, your administration is also being accused heavily of flying too much. You're always in the air, always going somewhere in the UAI, where the Prime Minister was just recently in Dubai and in these parts of the world. You were recently out there as well.
Junior, let me say this. Traveling is an essential part of a minister's of government portfolio or work. You cannot sit in your constituency in the back of nowhere and expect to basically move Grenada forward. You cannot sit at your desk in the ministry or in some constituency of you and expect things to fall from sky in the form of manna to be able to provide for the same people who basically say they ain't seen you and you're not doing this and you're not doing that and you're not helping them to survive. So I have no qualms about travels. Travel is an integral part of the job that you have to perform. So whether you do it 21 times or 30 times or 4 times, tell yourself that whether you like it or not, the ministers would have to travel to get the work done. I mean, I've heard stories about, oh, well, when you're traveling, so you don't have time to stay and do anything for your constituents and so on. You may perceive that, but that's not the case. And there are times when you travel, it doesn't mean that the state is basically providing you as the minister with the resources to do that travel. There might be organizations outside there that you contribute towards on a yearly basis that provide you with the hotel room, the meals, the airfare to get where you're going to basically make sure you represent your country. Take, for example, the OECS Secretariat. Grenada is part of the OECS. When they have an OECS heads of government meeting and so on, do you expect the Prime Minister to sit down in Grenada while his colleagues are meeting in Point A? No. They all have to be there. A quorum has to be established so that the meeting can carry on its function. And so too are many other meetings that we have attended in the past. The Minister of Foreign Affairs, for example, he is like the man that has the key to the gateway of the world. And he has to go out there and basically build relationship so that we as a people or as a nation benefit from his engagement with people outside and make things happen for us. So you cannot say he's traveling. Traveling is part of the work.
Yeah. Minister, and finally, the last loan that was signed by Grenada, I believe $100,000 loan. We also heard from that same fund, Dominica got $40-something million, not 100 million, and Dominica got $40-something million from that same loan, and they are looking to develop Roseau. But I also checked and realized and recognized that Dominica had a 2% interest rate on that same loan from that same bank and a significant time to pay. What was Grenada's arrangement for the payback of that loan in addition to the interest rate on that loan?
Okay, so the government of Grenada, when they were engaged with the Saudi Development Fund in terms of providing resources to carry out various projects in country, they did not only come to Grenada, they went to Dominica and other countries in the OECS to do that. Some of the countries would have signed loans of higher interest rate than we got because according to the debt profile or whatever it is and so on, they thought it was good monies for them. And I'm not saying it's not good monies. Don't get me wrong. In the case of Grenada, we have been taking prudent steps to ensure that all our borrowings are done on concessional basis. In other words, working with the IMF and the World Bank and so on, we make sure that we can sustain our debt going forward. You would have heard talks about we're trying to bring down our debt to GDP ratio by 2035 to somewhere in the region of 60% and so on. So we are trying to make sure that we stick to our guidelines of borrowing on a concessional basis. When we were offered that money initially, the interest rate was much higher than that. The terms and condition was different. I have had 3 separate meetings with the Saudis where we basically put forward our position. We are not going to be borrowing monies that is not concessional because we have to be worried about the long-term effect of our debt profile going forward.
Right.
And so before I actually moved to go to sign that loan, we got the assurances from the Saudi Development Fund that they were prepared to meet us where we want them. In other words, the 1.5% interest rate, the 7 years grace period, and the 25 years term. We also were able to negotiate in the clause of that loan a provision which says that if we have natural disasters, pandemics, and so on, we can suspend our payment on that loan without making that loan go into default. And that was our agreement. So the terms and conditions that Dominica has, or St. Vincent, or wherever it is and so on has, may be different to what Grenada got. But again, that was done through stern negotiation with the premise that we wanted a concessional borrow. I've got stories outside of that. I traveled to Saudi Arabia. I have never been to Saudi Arabia in my life. I actually signed that loan agreement after making sure that we negotiated that loan and got the conditions that we have built in the loan on the sidelines of the World Bank IMF meeting in Marrakesh, Morocco, in October.
What do you mean you travel Saudi Arabia and they said you were in Saudi Arabia? You
I'm saying,
no, the
there
agreement.
are people outside that are spreading lies and misinformation. I never traveled to Saudi Arabia. I met with the Saudi Development Fund CEO at the outskirts of the meetings that were held in Morocco. And that's where the loan agreement was signed. So to tell people that Mr. Cornwall traveled to Saudi Arabia and those kind of countries and so on, I have not been there.
What about being asked the terms on the agreement and you didn't know anything about it?
That's not true. I mean, in a press conference that we had, when the Prime Minister outlined the terms and conditions of the loan, I confirmed that those terms and conditions were accurate.
Okay.
And let me go one step further. There are talks that we did not go to Parliament and that the opposition knew nothing about the loan and so on. All they heard is that we went out and signed a loan. We brought a motion to Parliament to seek approval for the borrowing of that $100 million loan. Maybe the leader of the opposition had left the Parliament earlier that day, so he may not have been part and parcel of that discussions. But other persons on his side were there, and they are fully aware that we passed that motion to allow the Minister of Finance to borrow $100 million from the Saudi Development Fund.
Because it was said that you didn't. It was said that
I'm saying to them, check the minutes and check the Hansard report. They will be further enlightened on that particular matter. And even after we had press conferences, the same nonsensical question was raised again about we didn't go to Parliament to pass an act to basically have the loan taken. And I'm saying that we do not need an act of Parliament to have that loan put together. We had already gone to Parliament to seek authority to borrow that money.
Okay. I said last, but this is the final IMF report. The IMF gave a good review of the government performance. However, in a conversation with Emmeline Peer, she laughed it off or pronounced that it was somehow incorrect or invalid, or not quoting what she said though, but within that realm she was speaking about it. Can one question the IMF report? Does the IMF have any favors with the current administration that it didn't with the others? Like, how could one question that?
Well, I would simply say this, Junior. We do not owe the IMF or any of his employees any favor. They have a duty to perform, which is come to the countries, do their assessment and their audit, and they don't only speak to government employees, they speak to the private sector and other stakeholders throughout the country. So when they form their opinion about a particular matter or issue and so on, it is not coming from the Ministry of Finance alone. It is something that they would have picked up out there. Their data to support what they are basically saying. So when the IMF pronounced that Grenada has a good bill of health, that the growth is robust, 5.5%, that the unemployment rate is down, that the consumer price index has been lowered, all of these things are data they picked up not only from Minister of Finance. Yes, we do have an obligation to sit down and hear the findings at the end of the mission. But we do not put a gun to the head and say, well, tell us only nice things about Grenada and so on. And for those out there who don't even have a basis in economics or in finance or other areas and want to play bush economics or bush whatever it is, I would say let them continue. But we do not have to buy the nonsense that they are talking outside there. Some say the numbers that are quoted and so on, they don't meet reality on the ground and so on. But these people went to the ground, to the stakeholders, to the businessman, to the hotel sector, to wherever they have to go, to verify the numbers that they basically go back with and be able to make those pronouncements they are making and so on. And therefore, those who want to basically challenge the IMF report or what they have pronounced is up to them. Doesn't make them truthful, it doesn't make them intelligent, and as such, I don't basically respect those statements at all.
Well, Mr. Honorable Minister, you've been more than accommodating, and I appreciate your time. We went over an hour and 27 minutes, almost an hour and a half, debunking some of the claims that was made And I'm happy you took the time to do that, to chat with us here. Any closing words, any last words you want to add before we wrap up this segment?
Junior, we have said in the budget speech presentation that the 2024 budget is a budget for the people and by the people. What I mean by that, we have had widespread consultations with personnel in the diaspora throughout Grenada, Carriacou, and Pidgin, and we listened to what the people were saying outside there. We have looked at a situation where we have, measured what is our revenue capabilities, what is our grant capabilities, what amounts we can basically allocate to the various sectors and interest groups. And therefore, we believe that we have made provisions for all and sundry to be able to be beneficial from this budget. Now, you would still find the naysayers outside there saying that, oh, well, they didn't get this and the government did this because of that and the other and so on. I would say you would be the judge because you would be the one living in Grenada for the next 12 months. And you will realize that the $1.6 billion that we provided for the budget will impact everyone that we have talked about in the budget. The less fortunate, the business sector, the Imanis, the parents and kids in the schools that will be benefiting from free tuition and free meals and so on to make sure that they can conduct their business in a manner that is productive for them. And there are many others that will benefit from it. Even the naysayers that basically talking about, oh, well, the budget is this and the budget is that, and it's very political and so on. They are entitled to their opinion. And I would not, fight a battle with somebody if he feels that my presentation was not fluid and whatever. Put yourself in my shoes and stand up for 2 hours and be able to talk through the facts that we have provided you. You could say those facts are muddled with all kinds of things, with politics. Politics will always be there because we are not living in a vacuum. And therefore, I believe we have an opportunity to embrace, unite, and let's put Grenada first. We can only do so if we work together to make this place a better place. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Honorable Dennis Cornwall, Minister of Finance. We appreciate your time, sir. Thanks again. We'll keep in touch.
Thank you, Junior.
All right, guys. Thanks again to Honorable Cornwall for chatting with us here. I got some closing remarks when we come back. Don't move.
Grenada!
Get ready for something new as Project 413 presents North Pole Festival of Lights.
It's Festival of Lights, the official launch.
Come here, my baby. Come, let me show you nice.
Saturday, December 9th, the Breakwater Project in Sates will be lit. We're lighting up the Breakwater Project. The lights will be on from 6:30 p.m. and runs every night for the entire month. Come enjoy the amazing light show together with live performance by Boise, Valine, Crabe, Lunispark, Electrify, and more.
Come enjoy the Octane Band and the Alpha 1 Band.
Showtime 9 p.m. Admission only $25. Weekdays absolutely free. The lights will be on display every night and there will be live performances every weekend.
Festival of Lights, the official launch.
Saturday, December 9th, the Breakwater Beach, downtown Sates. See you there.
You ready for an exhilarating adventure? Then look no further than Ride Excursions and Tours. Get ready to explore the great outdoors like never before with our powerful e-bikes. Discover breathtaking sightseeing tours around the island. Feel the wind in your hair and experience nature in its purest form. Now, whether you're a seasoned rider or a beginner, our e-bikes are perfect for everyone. Call us at 473-422-1011 to book your excursion or visit ridersebikes.com. That's ridersebike.com to reserve your spot. Unleash your adventurous spirit with Ride Excursions and Tours, where every journey becomes an unforgettable adventure.
The government of Grenada, through the Ministry of Finance, is continuing the rollout of its tax amnesty initiative. The amnesty provides 100% waiver of all interest and penalties on all outstanding balances up to the end of December 2021. All taxpayers with outstanding tax balances and outstanding returns to file are encouraged to take advantage of this amnesty. All tax types administered by the division are eligible for tax amnesty. For further information on the tax amnesty, please contact the Inland Revenue Division at 435-6945 or 435-6946. Email tpshelpdesk@ird.gov.gd or visit our website ird.gd. Amnesty ends December 31st.
I want you folks to play these 3 games from the NLA. Daily pick 3 cash flow and play with. You will be supporting sports and culture, nation building and our future. So go out and play, folks, make it a must. You will see what the National Lottery is doing for us. When you play pick 3 cash flow and play with, the NLA will support you all the way.
Starting September 30th, Monday to Friday, these 3 games will be drawn mid-morning, 9:45 a.m., midday, 12:45 p.m., and evenings, 7:45 p.m. The National Lotteries, supporting sports, culture, and nation building.
Sunday money day.
Now, it's Instacash Grenada. Imagine a game with no numbers to choose from, no draws to wait on, and you can play it every day, including Sunday. That's Instacash. It's fast, it's easy to play, and you win prizes instantly. Instacash. Must be 18 years or older to play. NLA. Making dreams come true.
Yeah. Thank you for watching, guys, and thank you for supporting, and thank you for sharing. The folks on YouTube, guys, we have built such a very strong following on YouTube, and I really appreciate the growth. So you guys on YouTube, I love the fact that you're locked on, you're participating. Some of you guys watching us on Fire TV. Yeah, big up to the folks that's watching us on Fire TV. Thank you so much. So we have the Facebook fans, the Fire TV, the YouTube, the Instagram, all over the world. Thank you guys so much. Guys, you see, that is why I think it's a dangerous precedent that's been set when we have this dissection of medias on this small island, 100,000 people. You have one set of people speaking to their audience and another set of people speaking to their audience. And oftentimes what's happening is these people that are speaking to their specific audience, they are even encouraging their viewers and supporters not to listen to anyone else. So the information is coming directly and only from them. And oftentimes rumors and lies just spread when you have that kind of setup. That kind of setup, it breeds rumors and lies. So I've often asked, and I almost got on my knees and begged the opposition, members of parliament, to come on and have an engagement where we could find out about the things, just like how Mr. Cornwall was able to come on here and speak to us and debunk some of the claims. I would like, and I'm asking, that members of the New National Party, the former administration, do the same and stop only showing up to friendly media platforms. Well, we're friendly too, but I mean, set up media platforms that they basically own and operate to give up their story. We cannot go forward with half of the nation. We cannot only sell our story to only our supporters. And I also encourage the NDC members and MPs to go over on different media platforms and tell their stories as well, and speak and get challenged on the things that they're doing. Because you can't only speak to one segment of the population. It breeds rumors and lies to spread, cultivate, and continue. Again, I'm asking, and you guys know how hard I ask. Members of the opposition, we are asking to, and I've sent out email messages, I've sent out WhatsApp messages, and the response I would get is, I'll message you when I'm ready. They have not reached out, and I don't know if they will reach out. So there are a lot of claims made here today by the Minister of Finance that debunked a lot of claims. I would like for someone to come and set the record straight. Set the record straight. You can't only stand on your platform and speak out the things that you want your supporters to believe. which has been debunked here on this program by the opposition leader, by the Minister of Finance. This is an opportunity to set the record straight. All right? And if you believe in what you're saying, if you believe that the finance minister is incorrect in what he's saying, let us ventilate on that topic. Let us ventilate on what you have to say. Let us bring the facts out to debunk what he's saying. All right? Ride Along Live is here specifically for that purpose. Thanks again, guys. We appreciate you so much. Don't forget that in a few weeks, we'll be launching the Ride Excursions and Tours in Grenada. And preemptively, we're going to be having this test ride. So if you want to have a test ride, we have some of the most customizable, best brands of e-bikes on the island, and it's Ride e-bikes, guys. Now, there are 3 phases to when the whole thing's set up. But first, let me tell you about the test ride. The test ride is just basically you're gonna get a chance to test ride the bikes off-road and see how it works and, get a feel of it and all of that stuff. And we're even gonna have in our setup area, we're even gonna have some people who want to learn. We're gonna help teach you how to ride the e-bikes, but that's for later. So the test ride, if you want to get a test ride on these bikes, you could go to the website at ridersebike.com. That's ridersebike.com and click on test ride. Fill out that form right there, and voila, you will be first in line to receive a free test ride on our e-bikes. All right. Don't forget, on the 2nd, we're going to be officially launching the Riders Excursion e-bikes. You could rent the bikes. You could, you have the Sunday excursions. And of course, we're going into neighborhoods. Every week, we go into a different neighborhood, a different area. It will be hike and bike. Your hike half of the way, your bike half of the way. And it's going to be areas that probably you've never seen before. It's really, really exciting, guys. But make sure you sign up for the Riders e-bike free test ride. All right. Again, guys, go to the website at Riders. Let me type it in there. RYDERS ebike.com and click on test ride and sign up for a free test ride. Also, guys, if you have a business and you want to advertise on Ride Along Live, don't forget, guys, this is the spot. Over 6.3 million viewers per month. It is one of the most diverse platforms all through the Caribbean region, locally, internationally. Everybody watch Ride Along Live. Even on Spotify, you could catch us on Spotify, on Fire TV, on Facebook, YouTube, you name it, we are there. We're in everything like salt. Everywhere you go, you're seeing Ride Along Live. You can't get away from us. Advertise your business and give us an opportunity to send your business viral. Yeah. Don't keep your business a secret. Advertise and Ride Along Live, and we'll show you, we'll market your business. We'll tell you how you could get your business or product or service from zero to hero. We'll take you through it. All right? Thanks again, guys, for watching. Thanks for being a part of our program. We appreciate you so much. On behalf of all of our production team here, our senior executive producer, Lois, JJ, big up yourself, Gail, and Deanne Fraser. How you doing, Deanne? I seen a long time. And of course, Kibbs, Wago, how you doing? See you guys tomorrow. Bye-bye.
You ready for an exhilarating adventure? Then look no further than Ride Excursions and Tours. Get ready to explore the great outdoors like never before with our powerful e-bikes. Discover breathtaking sightseeing tours around the island. Feel the wind in your hair and experience nature in its purest form. Now, whether you're a seasoned rider or a beginner, our e-bikes are perfect for everyone. Call us at 473-422-1011 to book your excursion or visit ridersebikes.com. That's ridersebike.com to reserve your spot. Unleash your adventurous spirit with Ride Excursions and Tours, where every journey becomes an unforgettable adventure.